Content warnings include queerphobia and toxic church leadership.
Greetings, you are listening to Horror Nerds at Church, a podcast where we take a deep dive into a horror film and talk about what it can teach us about God, the Bible, and each other. Today is our third minisode where we share your real-life church horror stories, and we have a special guest. We'll get to that person in a moment. But I'm Pace.
And I'm Joe.
And I'm Matt.
Yay!
And Matt is our special guest. Or is he special? I don't know.
He's our very special guest because he is the editor of our podcast. He also wrote the theme for our podcast. He is also my husband, and he is also just an all-around very fun, smart person.
Amen. I don't think this podcast would be here without Matt's work, honestly.
Well,
For
thank you
real.
both so much. It's very kind.
And so, Matt, we'll interview you a little bit at the end, but tell us a little bit about your day job for when you're not slaving away editing our podcast.
Well, my day job is I'm the music director at a church, and I do everything from play in organ, piano, harpsichord as needed, sing, direct choirs, bell choirs, create a concert series, the whole 9 yards. Anything that happens that's music related, that's what I do. So, and I've been doing that since the last, a little over 20 years now, since I was 14. So
Yeah, and various churches, various denominations throughout the country. Like, you got your career out, started in the Midwest, then you moved to the East Coast, then California, right? So it's not
right.
so Matt's gonna tell us a little horror stories, but just so you know, we're not going to name any where these churches are, what denomination they were, or anything, just to keep the stories anonymous. But all these are true stories that he'll be telling us a little bit later on. But before I get into that, how are you doing, Joe?
I'm doing well. I could use a little bit more sleep these days, but who among us isn't having the same problem, right?
Right, exactly. The pandemic that just never ends.
Yeah. Yeah.
Capitalism that just wants us to keep going anyway.
Oh, exactly. It's so exhausting. How are you doing, Pace?
I'm in the same boat, just really tired. Feel like I could have a um IV drip of caffeine or something because I just need it so
Mm-hmm.
bad.
I
But
know.
I think we're getting pizza tonight. Am I right, Matt?
Maybe.
Maybe. So I'm looking forward to that if we do get pizza.
Hmm. Sounds like something to look forward to for sure.
Yep. Yep. So well, we have a story today sent in from a listener. So why don't you go ahead and read that one, Joe?
Yeah, sure. First of all, thanks for the submission. I am going to be reading an anonymous story from a pastor in a mainline Protestant congregation. The story goes: I am part of a group of pastors that meets virtually to talk about the pandemic needs for congregations, and the congregation we serve has been steady and comfortable, waiting to reopen until just recently to start moving to in person worship. But throughout the fall, I got told by cishet white guy pastors, the ultimate horror, that we were, quote, so courageous and that they couldn't possibly resist the parishioners who said they were going to go somewhere else if the pastors didn't restart in person worship. The biggest difference is that we are a justice rooted congregation with an immigrant pastor and a queer pastor. So we're used to prioritizing things differently than the cishet boys. Who isn't? The cishet
Right.
boys, and this is just me now, me, Joe, just cishet boys do their own thing and like stop it.
Yeah, I think that's telling. Like, when you said the real horror after this is that white guy pastors, because like truly like it's not all men and all that stuff. Hashtag I know at us whatever,
Right.
but for real like just there's this real kind of toxic masculinity that feeds in, that is kind of aided and embedded by religion, and so you get within a lot of churches a lot of really problematic people in leadership positions over congregations and over people that just misuse their power in all sorts of ways, and
Oh yeah.
or and that's the bad end of the scale. And then of course just the problematic annoying end is what this pastor was talking about them just not even being able to stand up for justice in their own congregation.
Exactly. When their congregation is basically entirely in the margins is what I'm getting from the story here. So,
So
yeah, I you're right about the cishet man being problematic, especially in religion. I can't help but think of that one especially nocious pastor, Stephen Furtick. Are you familiar with him?
no, I don't think so.
He yeah, he comes from a mega church in I want to say North Carolina. And when he preaches, he's just dripping with disgusting cishet masculinity. I don't see I don't I don't detect any vibes from the Holy Spirit, from Jesus. Eh, I can't believe he's even a pastor because the whole show is about him. It's not about God at all.
Yeah, for real. Okay, well, I guess it's time to interview Matt. You ready?
Ooh.
Ready as I'll ever be.
Dun dun dun.
Okay. So, this is so we came with this idea just because we thought it'd be fun. You've been working in church for over 20 years, you say. So, this is just kind of the church horror stories that you've had to endure, I guess.
Hmm. I mean, yeah, Matt, you've been at this for a while. I hate to ask if there are some horrors, and what are they that you've encountered?
There's definitely horrors, unfortunately, and other unfortunate things that take place. So it happens everywhere.
So, one thing that you joke about frequently is just how much of a pain in the ass it is to do weddings. So I'm sure you have some wedding horror stories from all the weddings you played for.
I think that's probably sorry everyone. I think it's probably just about everybody. They all have their very specific ways of doing things, and it's got to be this way. And sometimes it's not always the couple themselves. Sometimes it's members of their family who try to fight in front of you, or they go behind their back and then contact you, and say, I really want this because this is what I want from my child. And I'm like, I'm sorry, but your child didn't, you didn't hire me, your child did. It's their
Right.
wedding, to go talk to them. And uh, and uh, and and other things like that. Um and not only that is it, then there's also the other side of it, which whereas sometimes, particularly in churches that are more ritualized and have more strict rules and guidelines to follow, sometimes you get in trouble with the pastor, because or the presider for the service, because you've skipped some of the rules and guidelines of what's allowed, what isn't, and sometimes that's a nightmare within itself as well.
Oh. So so other family members are trying to insert themselves into the whole process when that's not really how this works.
Right, and it's just really awkward because you get stuck in the middle of it. It's like, please don't put me in the middle. Just tell me what you want to play. I don't care who picks it. I don't care what it is. Just tell me what you want to play. It's just like, I don't care.
Well, you also have people who like want all sorts of weird ass shit too, like from strange song requests. Or you can talk about one of the things Matt often talks about, especially when we see a wedding that takes place in a movie, is a lot of the songs from weddings are not like actually really good for weddings.
Yeah, that's certainly true. Some of them just, yeah, the way you see it on screen doesn't always work in real life. Some if it's in a religious context, a lot of traditions, especially the ones a little bit more strict, will not even let you have this music in within the worship. So you might want a particular song or anything, and then they'll be like, nope, you can't have it because it's not church appropriate. You know, whatever that means, depending where you go. And also too, some of the songs, like where they come from, such as like, why do we not like to use the wedding march or the bridal chorus? You know, it's like, well, we don't use one of them because the bridal chorus, because it was an opera written as an insult to an entire culture, and where the other one, the wedding march, is from the Shakespearean play. A Midnight Summer's Dream, where it
Midsummer Night's Dream.
yeah, thank you. And where it's during the scene where Titania marries, we'll say a polite conversation, we'll say a donkey or something, and and so it makes a farce of wedding. So and the concept of a wedding, and so some people don't like to use that one either.
So some people might not recognize those by names, but you like hum the opening stanza to both of those. I think people would recognize them if they
Oh,
hear them.
sure, the bridal chorus, everyone's favorite, bum bum ba bum 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 ba dum. And then the wedding march is bum bum ba dum bum 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 ba dum bum bum.
I had no idea about the backgrounds of either of those.
Yeah, right. And so Matt always, like, if people really want to use it, Matt will usually let them. But it's just like, of course, it depends on the church, like you're saying. But like you're saying, Matt, you at least try to educate them on why you prefer not to use those particular songs.
Or maybe at least other things to consider, and then also too, a lot of people do just like Google, you know, like top 10 wedding hits, you know, or something, and or top 10 things for weddings, because everybody wants, believe it or not, almost everybody is picking the same like top 10, top 15 tunes, you know, and all the traditional ones, like what you would think, like the two that we just discussed, as well as some of the trumpet solo kind of fanfares. You
And
know,
of course,
you'll see
Canon
those.
and D, everybody's
Oh yeah,
favorite.
and
This
that
news
not so
fest.
much Canon and D, surprisingly.
But what's
Um,
the one Ave Maria that everybody loves at Catholic weddings for those you've done?
oh, the Schubert.
Ugh, yes.
They don't know about the Bakuno, because there are, as like, because I've learned, although have learned over the years to ask them, which one do you want, you know, like send me, and now that we have this great thing called YouTube, I can tell them, it's like, when you get home, send me a link to YouTube so I can hear the one that you want to hear, you know, and because otherwise, you know, it's, if they just say I want Ave Maria, if you do the Schubert, then they'll have one of the Bach, you know, and the other way around.
Yeah. What about
Matt, what you were saying earlier about wedding music, I didn't know it was so complicated, but it also reminds me too of a rabbit hole that I went down once, about a song that was played during a wedding, a fictional wedding, but still a beautiful wedding nonetheless. I love the show Friends.
please let's just do that from now on. It's like, oh, it was a heterosexual wedding. I mean, it was good for a heterosexual wedding, but
Yes, it was a heterosexual wedding, sadly, but one of the good heterosexual couples, Monica and Chandler from Friends, when they got married, the tune that Monica was walking down the aisle to, I immediately recognized as "A Groovy Kind of Love" by Phil Collins, and so I went online, you know, to talk about this with the other Friends fans and the fan community. The show actually never confirmed whether or not that was a groovy kind of love because, and I never knew this, the melody for a groovy kind of love was taken from a classical song. And it's not. It's. I thought this was Phil Collins's, like, you know, original, but it's actually taken from a classical song from like back in the 1800s, I think. And so that melody is traditionally used in certain weddings, and that just happened to be sampled for a pop song. So that I thought that was interesting.
I agree. And Friends. All I can no, I'm not gonna go there. Never mind. Friends,
Say it.
Friends.
Say it.
No,
Okay.
it's too heterosexual for me. It's it's not a show that I enjoy. It's
No,
great. Come on.
I understand that definitely. Here we go. The of a groovy kind of love is sampled from Sonatina Opus number 36, Movement 5 by Clementi.
So, do you have any ghost stories? Not necessarily church related, but just any ghost stories or anything like that?
Not
Supernatural.
not necessarily like seeing a ghost or anything for me specifically, but there was a one of my jobs. There was the place I was living at the time. Um, the place where I was working was very had a very toxic staff and leadership,
Mm.
and it was very strange. Like I was at home, and then it's like it just I got home and it felt like there was something else in the room with me. I guess I don't know. Like it just felt like
Ooh.
very dark and evil and whatnot to the point that that Pace and I walked around with I think it was like sage or something. You know, we were like burning it, like trying
Wow.
to follow some old like ritual or something to see if
Right.
that helped. And then um, it did. So whether it like it felt like it did, so I felt relieved when I came back in. Did it actually get rid of something? I don't know, but I'm not saying
Mhm.
that it did, but you know what you know what you sense and feel. So
Of course.
whatever that means. And that would be my probably my one of my better ghost stories.
Well, and I'm a big believer in how the spiritual realm is very, I guess you could say, active in the way that Earth is geologically active, and so I wouldn't be surprised if you and Pace experienced that moment because something slipped in to that temporal reality of yours, and then you use the sage to effectively drive it back to wherever it came from.
Yep, yep. There's all sorts of rituals around blessing of homes and stuff. One prominent ritual that many, I would say, higher liturgical Christians, so that would be many people would identify as Catholic, Lutheran, Episcopalian, that kind of more high church. Uh, One tradition that many church people in those more higher church traditions have is to mark the house at the beginning of the new year with CMP over the
Yes.
um the doorpost, and that's just a way to basically say a way for Christ to bless a home, but it's also tied with into Epiphany and stuff like that. So all sorts
I
of kind of traditions. Yeah.
I wasn't even aware of that tradition until I did my field education for seminary, and it was for the Gubbio Project, which is this organization in San Francisco that temporarily houses the homeless in churches during days when churches are not having services. And it was my supervisor, the one, the only, the iconic, the lovely John Brett, who introduced me to that tradition when I came into work one day and I saw that hanging above the doorway, and I was like, what are those
Mhm.
what are those series of characters?
Yep.
I just felt like such an outsider because it was such a sacred tradition in Christian experience, and I didn't know about it.
Yeah. Um any other story, and just like any number of churches come like annual budget time or annual meeting time, always having job security fears and stuff like that because the congregation is losing money and stuff. So it's just there's a lot of and that's like almost every church I've ever worked at. That's not exclusive to a single church, and so that's just part of the ups and downs of being a church leader. Is often you're underpaid to begin with, and then you also
Mhm.
don't get much job security.
Yeah, everyday horrors right there.
I mean, that's by and large capitalism too, or am I wrong? But I
Mhm.
mean,
Mhm.
that's what I was kind of saying in the episode we just recorded on Psycho. I was talking about some of the horrors of the church wedding itself to capitalism. So,
Oh yeah, for sure.
anyway, Any other stories you want to tell us? Fun ones, Matt?
Yeah, something
Give us,
bright
yeah,
in contrast.
give us something uplifting. Tell us a fun story from church lately, and that's what we'll end on.
A fun story from church. Well, let's see. It's not that we're getting towards the end of the pandemic, but as we begin to see life post pandemic and what that might look like and what it means. Like many churches during the pandemic, were dispersed and not
Mm.
gathering in person, but we're now starting to welcome people back for the first time, and we're very, very excited. So it'll be nice to have people back in the building again. We're very, very happy about that. I am just absolutely
Yeah.
thrilled.
Yay!
Aw. Yeah, that does sound lovely. It's nice that everyone is slowly getting back together again.
Well, I anything else and you want to end on, Joe, or are we ready for our outro?
Matt, thanks so much for sharing some everyday horrors and everyday life.
Yep.
Thank you
Um,
for having me.
Thanks for being a good sport and for helping our podcast go.
yeah, we couldn't
You're
do
welcome.
this without you.
I know.
So humble.
Matt knows. That is going to do it for our mini-sode today. If you would like to write in to us and share your real-life horror story, please do so by emailing us at horrornerdsatchurch@gmail.com. Please comment, rate, and subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, or wherever you get your podcasts. Follow us on social media. We're on Facebook and Instagram at Horror Nerds at Church and on Twitter at HNAC Pod for all the latest updates about upcoming films, news, and other announcements. Till next time, thanks for spending a couple of moments with us. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.